Good evening and welcome everybody for this very important discussion that we are going to have today based on the scientific facts that are available to us. Okay, so we are going to discuss the recognized endocrine disrupting agents, and we'll also discuss some more aspects in question and answers depending on how you select to ask the questions. So, this topic is very important because nowadays our kids they fall ill on very small accounts, right? And same thing, we don't understand like what's wrong with immunity. So everybody talks about immunity. So let me tell you that humans they started their journey with two nucleus, right? Half cell from father and half cell from mother, and then they joined and they became a single cell. From that single cell, the whole organism or the whole living being developed. So this information from two individual half cells, half cell of father and half cell of mother, when they combine, they form one nucleus, and then they later on form the whole organism, the whole being. Now, how do they communicate, right? They communicate from nucleus to outside. So the nucleus, the DNA, the RNA, they hold the information on the formation of organism. Now, how do the body know? How do the body translate the language from the nucleus to the peripheral, to the different tissues? So for that, there is a definite pattern which we call as nuclear receptor superfamily. So this whole family is responsible for communicating the information from the nucleus to the peripherals, to each and every part, to mature the whole system. So this is where we have to understand the importance of nuclear receptors. Even doctors don't understand that. It's okay, but we as being aware or we are among those educated guys who have prime education, the most understanding education that a human being needs in present times. So we can, discuss, we can spread along. So I'm going to discuss some aspects on that, where what are nuclear receptors and what do they do, and how does endocrine disrupting agents or endocrine disrupting chemicals, as it is called in US, how do they affect it? So that is what will be our talk today. So this whole thing is very important thing, and we should understand that this thing will change the future of chronic diseases, on how we think chronic disease is and what human life is all about. Okay, so endocrine disrupting agents or endocrine disruptors. My name is Dr. Syed Tahir Hassan. I am a general physician in South. Okay, so I'm also a part of India. So I shared with you this very important slide earlier also. So where the endocrine disrupting agents or endocrine disruptors are in every part of our life, be it cosmetics, be it shampoos, lotions, nail polish, be it medical equipments, even some medicines, be it automobile, be it enteric coated pharmaceuticals, enteric coated capsules that are available, okay, or be it art supplies, or be it scented products, oil fresheners, scented candles, or be it building materials, baby products, baby toys. All these have endocrine disruptors in them. So we'll just look and what all they are and how they affect us. So this is what I was telling you, nuclear receptors. Nuclear receptors comprise a superfamily of sequence-specific transcription factors. I'm a high scientific language. So they take the information from the nucleus across to the whole periphery. So they bind directly to the DNA, and whatever expression is there in DNA, whatever the language of DNA, it gets translated into the whole organism. And what are they? They are nothing but the sex steroid hormones, vitamin D, adrenal steroids, some metabolic ligands, or ligands are those chemicals which bind with the lock-in key mechanism in human body. So these ligands are fatty acids. If fatty acid esters, all these fatty acids are they all decide on the nuclear receptor transcription, and what they do, they help in metabolism, they help in development of the human being, and they'll help in reproduction of the human being. And these ligands, there are many, and all these ligands, they bind and activate the nuclear receptors. So once they activate nuclear receptors, they take the information from the nucleus, from the DNA, and transmit it to the cell. And that is how the metabolism, the energy metabolism, homeostasis, cell differentiation, cell forming from one cell into one organ and forming the whole organism, the whole thing is transcripted. And these ligands are nothing but they are there in our own human body. They are endogenous hormones, thyroid hormones, adrenal hormones, glucocorticoids, all these hormones, estrogen, progesterone, all these hormones, they are there in us. They take this activity, vitamin A, vitamin D, and also xenobiotic endocrine disruptors. Xenobiotic means our body doesn't produce it, but it comes into our body, enters in our body, and they disrupt the whole endocrine system. The whole translation from the nucleus to the periphery is disturbed. Now, what are these endocrine disrupting agents? There are many chemicals. They're both natural, man-made, so they interfere with the body's normal endocrine system. So these chemicals, they are linked with developmental, reproductive, brain, immune, as well as other issues. So you have such a huge thing. And all these endocrine disruptors, like I told you, they are all present in our day-to-day things. So I'll discuss more about that as we go ahead. Like, this is the endocrine system. What does the endocrine system do? All this metabolism, have a look. So you have hypothalamus, you have thyroid, you have pancreas, you have adrenal glands, you have ovaries, you have testes, all these glands. And each gland has an associated function. And each function, when it disrupts, it gives rise to the diseases. So this is one beautiful slide that was available. Now, what all endocrine disruptors? They can disrupt everything. They are everywhere. We'll discuss more about that in the following things. And all these things, they're a part of our day-to-day life. They affect us. Now, what are the common endocrine disrupting agents? Okay, so BPA. BPA is most common. And BPA is one of the first recognized, actually the first recognized was DES, stilbestrol, but this bisphenol was first on which the research was done. And they found that it was there in plastic bottles. And plastic bottles, in the earlier time when the petroleum industry started, they didn't know what to do with the after the cleansing of all the crude oil, whatever remaining things were, they didn't know what to do. Then they brought use of it in the form of plastics. They started making plastic things. And one dangerous item was that the bisphenol A or BPA. And they started entering into human bodies. When they started seeing into the effects, like the kids were blind. They were born blind. Cataract was there with that. Some kids, they were born with malformed limbs. Okay. So before this, I want to, tell you one more thing. I want to discuss you one more thing. When medicine was discovered, the modern medicine, when it was discovered in late 90s, 1920s or so, and it started developing from the first medicine, the concept was that we are making medicine for you and it doesn't harm. All the medical fraternity, they never knew that all these medicines that are made, the chemical medicines, they could harm. Till thalidomide was introduced. We all know what is thalidomide. It was first introduced as anti-nausea and vomiting for pregnancy people. And whoever took that, their kids were born with limbless, like some kids didn't have hands, some kids did have. And Germany was worse affected with that. That's when they recognized that, yes, these chemicals can affect the development and it can affect the development and regenerative abilities. That was the first thing. So first chemical that was found to have tetragonic effect or effect where the kids born are malformed was thalidomide. That was recognized. And after that, the second recognized was DES, because DES was used to maintain healthy pregnancy. And the kids that were born to them were all those kids who, though I'm not putting them a very thing, don't take it in a negative way, because they are the ones who lost their identity as male or female. Because DES, or one kind of estrogen which was introduced to save the pregnancy, ultimately turned out to be the biggest endocrine disrupting agents. So apart from that, you have dioxins, which are available, especially it is used in paper bleaching. And also it is part of waste burning on wildfires and all. Then there is perchlorate, which is there in aerospace, weapon industry, pharmaceutical industry. It is also used in drinking water, like chlorine and fluorine, right? Then you have this PFAS. Now, this has become a big nuisance nowadays because it is there in firefighting foams that we have in their offices. Some people keep in the houses. Then it was very much common in non-stick pans. All the Teflon products had PFAS. And you can imagine how much it might have entered in your body and damaged us. And then pepper. You saw our kids, they bite pepper also. So it entered. And the worst was textile coatings. So every new dress, every new textile that we bought had all PFAS in that, just to show that the cloth is shining. It's attractive. And that is another thing. Then phthalates. Phthalates are those substances which are there to make the plastics more flexible. They are found in all the food packaging. All the food packaging which has that nice coating, which shows the glossy coating, they are all coated with phthalates. Cosmetics, children's toys, and medical devices also. Another biggest headache of modern society is phytoestrogens. We don't recognize this, but this phytoestrogens, especially tofu and soya milk, they are the biggest phytoestrogen. When they enter in our body, they create damage to the system. We'll discuss that. And these brominated ethers, like flame retardants, which are used even furniture foam, carpets, to foam the carpets and furniture, they use these chemicals. You can imagine even that is there in our houses every day, day-to-day houses. So you have all those things. And the worst is triclosan. Triclosan, especially in today's world, triclosan is so commonly used. It is the most commonly used antibacterial or antimicrobial in personal care products, in toothpaste, in soaps, in Dettol. Dettol is cetrimide, but still it has triclosan, Savlon. All these things, they are all endocrine disrupting agents. Now, what do they do? We'll look at them. So the worst effect that I have seen is on reproductive health effects. As we see so many cases nowadays, and I have kept this so that you understand that. And this I'm talking about recognized, medically recognized endocrine disrupting agents. Not which are all, there are all others which are also present, like organophosphorus, which Chidu will talk about. And all these things they do. What are the things they do? Like stilbestrol, like a DES. It was a synthetic estrogen and the first recognized endocrine disrupting chemicals. And it was used very commonly in between 1945 and 1971. It is to be administered to pregnant women say that, oh, your child will get aborted, so let's take this. So it will prevent miscarriage and prevent premature delivery. When we were studying, we didn't come across this substance. And then what they do is because it is estrogen, the demarcation of the fetus, whether the future male or future female baby, that demarcation is reduced because of DES. So it is recognized number one endocrine disrupting agent. Phthalates, like I told you, it is available in all the plastics today. It is active testicular toxicant. Means you can imagine today, on an average, the male sperm count has dropped down from say 150 million to now they made normally 70. So, and the count keeps going down. See, all these things, they affect us. And BPA, the worst things, which we see in plastic bottles, like drinking water bottles, Bisleri bottles, drinking, all the other thing. I don't want to mention each and everything, but all of those things, they are estrogenic and cause masculinization defects. So in males, the male won't become a male. So it will have an identity sign. Same thing with goes with female. The female won't be able to will have extra femininity. They'll like early puberty. Like early nowadays, you see the girls are getting early puberty. Same thing. And then BPAs are responsible for undescended testes. And what we call as DNA methylation of imprinted genes means that DNA is deformed. You see, this can directly interfere and cause DNA mutations. Knowledge is power. Now, how do they cause? I have done a small thing so that you understand, So this is the normal thing. So this is the normal hormone, which looks like green. Green is normal. Green is the way to go. And this receptor, it attaches to the receptor and it goes inside and creates, it attaches to the nucleus, and the translation from the nucleus, the information is as simple and as it should be. So it's a normal cellular response. So if this normal hormone is removed with hormone mimicking substance like phytoestrogen, they mimic like estrogen. So they may cause extensive cellular response, whereby the effects may increase or the effects may decrease. It can have both the effects. But the hormone blockers like triclosan and organophosphorus poison, they can actually damage the total cellular response. The whole response is damaged. So this is just for your understanding how the translation will occur and how the various endocrine disrupting agents can block, just for your normal understanding. Okay, now let's go into what all the diseases that are caused by endocrine disrupting agents or endocrine disrupting chemicals. The most common that we say nowadays, the kids are hyperactive. ADHD. It's one of the most common childhood disorder, and it can continue till as adolescent. Even we see adults also are restless. Even after attaining certain age, you still see people having attention deficit and they are hyperactive. This is the most common thing, and it is recognized thing. Another one is it affects immunity. So like especially children who are exposed to high levels of PFAS, this can diminish the immune response. Like they have done a study where they say that if PFAS is there, it can diminish the immune response to vaccines. Vaccines which are introduced, it can diminish. This is the research material that has been published, and I'm talking about that. So it can decrease the immunity and immune reactions. Metabolism. So long-term exposure to arsenic, we already know arsenic, cyanides, and all this thing, what all it can do. It can disrupt the metabolism. It can increase the risk of diabetes. So now we see that diabetes is increasing day by day. So all this is because it is like insulin-like factors which are there. So they mimic insulin. They go and sit where insulin has to sit, and insulin is not able to do that same thing. So such people, they end up getting diabetes and metabolic disorders, like premature breast development in girls, abnormal breast development in boys. These are the all recognized. DES or diethylacetylcholesterol. It causes epigenetic changes, altering the way genes are turned on and off. That's what I told. This actually, the identity for the child to become a male or female is lost. You see, all these issues were there between 1945 and 1971. So all those people who were given DES, they all had these effects. All the kids had these effects. And disruptions can cause cancers. They can cause birth defects and other developmental disorders that we see. They're so common nowadays. So we don't blame only the medicines. We blame this whole environmental poison that is us. And it is us who are to be blamed because we buy these poisons for the sake of our kids. Now, how do we remove the endocrine disrupting? So this is one of the methods, and this method is not for us. It is for the government to employ. It is for the industries who produce these chemicals. They are supposed to do this. They can do this treatment. They can do the water treatment. Who does it today? Like, for example, you have a garage who does servicing of our cars. Do they treat their oils before releasing it to the environment? How many people they do? Do they really do? If they are not doing, all the oils that are released, they are nothing but part of BPAs, and they are definitely going to destroy our system. Now, all these things are important. This is for the companies to look after that. They can use conventional water treatment, they can use photocatalytic degradation, they can use biodegradation, but how many people at least use? We have seen, especially the leather industry, where the chemicals are discharged directly into Ganges rivers. In Ganga, it is discharged. And what does that happen? People use it as holy water. Then what are you going to get at the end? Because, and it is their duty, and it is the duty of the government to see that all these technologies which they put in their laws are implemented. And now it has become our duty to see if there is an industry. We ask them, how do they treat their poisons, their waters, their disposals? Okay. Now, how do we avoid endocrine disruptors in our life? Okay, now what can we do for us? So first and say no to receipts, because all these small thermal papers, they're all coated with BPS. We go to KFC, we should not go to KFC, but still we go to KFC, we take receipt. We go to Big Bazaar, we take receipt. We go to all this market, we take receipt. So you tell them we don't want receipts, or you take those receipts which are printed on normal paper, not the thermal paper. Second thing is avoid plastics which are marked with PC. Okay, so phenol compound is there in that. So that has to be, if it is marked, if you see, because nowadays they are marking it. So if you see that the plastics are marked with PC, you don't buy it. Or the best is don't buy plastics. The unavoidable plastics like this is unavoidable plastic. So we can't help them, but the rest of the things we can avoid. We can avoid the plastic utensils, we can avoid the plastic bottles, all those things. How much we can avoid, we should avoid, and substitute fresh, frozen and dried foods instead of going for canned food. All the canned food, because when they do the canning and when they do the packing, they are going to put this parabens in that. They are going to put preservatives in that, and those are going to harm you. So better avoid all the type of canned foods. Especially this is another, if at all you can't, how can I avoid plastics? It is there in everything. So if at all you have a plastic thing, never put hot food in that. Never put hot, because we know it is a recognized thing. When you heat the BPA included plastics, it releases the BPA into that material. So you avoid heating them. Don't heat them. Okay. Avoid products that leads phthalates, especially fragrances. Whenever you see there is artificial fragrance, room sprays and all those things, avoid them. Nowadays, rare original ethers or scents are so difficult to get. All are fragrances. And all these fragrances, they contain phthalates because it evaporates easily in the environment and it coats, and you get a prolonged smell. Like deodorants, they use phthalates. And first of all, deodorants should not be used. But if at all you are using, it will contain phthalate, and that will create a huge issues. And the more longer that deodorant is lasting, like fog chalta hai. So more longer it is lasting, more dangerous it is. Okay. Another thing that you can do is you can buy a water filter that removes PFAS, especially if you have a piping system of plastics, then you best is to go for water filter. Reverse osmosis is the best bet, but it also comes with certain costs when you do reverse osmosis. So again, that is a headache, but still that is better than eating plastics. Avoid brands like Teflon, Scotch Guard, Stain Master, all these brands you should avoid, because all these contain PFAS, or they are coated with those dangerous elements which are highly carcinogenic. Skip the optional stain repellent treatment on new carpets. When you buy new carpets and all, put them in sun. Sun is the best disinfectant. Instead of calling the people and they'll clean with all this thing, you can use steam wash. That is better. And best is go for organic produce. The more organic you become, the better you earn. Now, how do we already detox our system, which already is poisoned with endocrine disrupting agents? Remember that all the nature-based treatments, they do the detoxing. They can remove all these endocrine disrupting agents, and the best is, instead of going for taking them and going for treatment, best is to avoid them altogether before they damage us and our kids. Okay, I hope you like it. I'll take your questions later on, and I'll invite Chidu to come and present. Thank you very much.
So, hi guys.
Welcome, Chidu.
Yeah, hi guys. Hope you can see me. Okay, cool. So, give me a minute. I'll just pull up my presentations. What happened? This glycine and everything. Okay, so I got that. And then in different animals, and what this happens? Glycine is producing important proteins that those plants. Is that coming from here? Sorry, guys. I'm not trying to read it. Exactly same.
Yes, I think it's coming from your end.
Programming is done by some other system, but glycine is yeah, okay. Important tool. Right. Okay. You could hear the voice, is it? Okay.
Yes.
So, okay, guys, I for creating all those things like you mentioned. So, okay, first a quick introduction. So, my name is Chidambaran. Folks call me Chidu. So, I think basically last week or maybe a week before that, Dr. Tahir and Ranika asked me if I would like to talk about, after Dr. Tahir's presentation. And the original topics I said was vaccines. But for me to, make the connection from vaccines to endocrine descriptors was a little more effort at my 2 weeks was packed. But there is one endocrine descriptor that, not really endocrine descriptors, I would call it a super, it's an endocrine descriptor ka baap. Okay, that has essentially invaded our world the last 20-30 years, with most of us probably don't know anything about it. It's a chemical called glyphosate. So I thought I'll talk about that and how it has actually literally increased in usage, and how bad it is and why it's really bad. Maybe many of you already know about it, but I'm sure at least some of you probably uh, don't know about it. Even my friends who work in agriculture, sustainable agriculture, they don't really have the background or the depth of how bad, how effed up the agricultural system is, and in turn, and how much this particular chemical is actually affecting us. Because glyphosate, nobody has the documentation on how it was approved. it for a chemical which is the number one weed killer in the world, nobody has got any documentation how it was approved. It has been used primarily in North America for the last 20-30 years. Now it has has been distributed throughout the world, and recently it went off patent, so anybody could manufacture it. And people, there are like many manufacturers right now in India and the rest of the world. I mean, India is very good at manufacturing things that is off patent, starting from the medical industry, right? So we have a very good strong manufacturing base, but people don't realize how bad the this thing. I'll just share my screen.
Can you speak a little bit louder, Chittu?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, your volume is
His voice is clear this side, my side.
Okay, all right, fine. I'll increase.
Is it better now?
Yes, it's good. Thank you.
I'll just take a 1 minute break. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I'll just give you one idea about what is glyphosate. Glyphosate is part of organophosphorus. We as doctors, especially in medical care, we come across lots of organophosphorus poisonings, and we have a list of side effects that it can cause, right from dryness of the mouth, poisoning, to long-term systemic side effects that can damage liver and that can damage the whole clotting mechanism. And we, in modern medicine and all medical colleges, we have a department which specially, counters to organophosphorus poisoning, rat poison, the common poisons that are used, DDT, The list is so much. Anything that is smells like kerosene, which is used, all those are organophosphorus poisoning. They they are as equivalent at the cellular level as cyanide. They can cause oxidative damage to the cells, and they can also have long-term implications, which can give rise to cancers. And glyphosate is one thing which people don't understand. They said, no, we don't use that, right? And that is also another common. The other organophosphorus poisoning, like the first one was DDT, which was introduced. And we know how DDT used to be spread, especially in malaria-rich areas. Especially whenever we heard about dengue and chikungunya, the government people used to come and put the powders all around. Now, how does that affect us? It's a very tough thing. And glyphosate is nothing but the refined product from the original organophosphorus products that were manufactured. Though they are number one weed killer, or it kills the insect that infests the crops and all those things, but still the long-term effects are very damaging. So welcome back, Chidu.
Yeah, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Mic and this thing. Is it better?
Better.
Okay, cool. So I'll just share my screen. Okay. Okay. You see that? Can you guys tell me what you see? I mean, I'm not sure. Can you see the roundup?
Yes, we can
Yes.
see the roundup
Okay, the
website.
roundup. So yeah, when you say glyphosate, right? It's basically this particular herbicide Roundup. This is the original name of the herbicide, and now it's known by various other names because it's, as I said, it's off patent, and a lot of agricultural companies in India have started manufacturing it and distributing it. But it's for conventional agriculture. When I say conventional, I mean non-organic agriculture. It is a number one chemical used to spread throughout the field and sort of kill all the weeds before they can plant. That used to be its primary application when it started until now, and at least to my knowledge, in India, that's the primary use. But as we go ahead, we can see the usage of glyphosate has gone beyond just killing weeds. Yeah, so it's actually was discovered and synthesized by a soil bacteria from Monsanto, and Monsanto actually had the patent for it for 30 years, and it's probably more than 30. It's used since the 1970s. Okay, and remarkably enough, nobody has got the original documentation based on which it was approved to be safe for usage. Okay, so at this point was also brought out by a activist, retired marine engineer, Doctor, not Doctor, Shantanu Mitra, Tony Mitra, who stays in Vancouver, BC. And a lot of what we know about glyphosate, at least what I know about glyphosate, I have to thank him for it. He had come here on a personal visit in 2018, and I used to follow him on Facebook and on his blog for the last 1 year before that. Yeah. Okay. So this is a rough indication of what this chemical is in USD. This I pulled out from a marketing publication that was talked very positively about glyphosate, and now the market is increasing, and probably it has increased. I've seen that Roundup is being used everywhere in agriculture. So it used to be like 1.1 million US dollars to 1.6 million US dollars. The this is expected growth in 2022, and we are in 2021. So, as I said, first it's spread across fields to kill unwanted plants and weeds. Yes. After that, there's a second usage where the company has actively promoted without any, which has actually increased the amount of glyphosate spread in the atmosphere for threshing. Basically, for when you take grains, right? Uh, Ragi, rice, wheat, whatever. You have to thresh the grains. So from the stalk, you have to pull out the grains, the edible part of the grains, right? So if you go to rural Karnataka, at least you will see people doing it a very conventional way. They just put it on the road and let all vehicles go over it. And once the vehicles have gone over, the stalks come off. They'll take it away and they'll take off the ragi with a broom, and using some simple what you call moram, the threshing them, and they will basically take it out and use that for eating. That is, so take out the stick. You can do that, or you can send it to a mill, to automatic mill, to take out the grains, etc., like that. Now, in US and North America, where labor is very, very, very expensive, what they have started doing now is they basically douse the harvested stalks with glyphosate. Now we all know it's a weed killer, right? So what happens? The rest of the plant easily dies, immediately dies very fast. Instead of them having to use conventional mechanical ways to extract the grain, they simply douse it with glyphosate. So the rest of the plant simply withers away and the grain is easily separated. I mean, you can only imagine how disgusting this is. I mean, but this is actually followed, right? Probably North America, I know it's followed, and it's probably used in Australia also, where uh, the, there's very sparse population, and most people don't even care what happens in the fields. So this might sound very shocking to people if you're hearing this for the first time, but this is actually used in a widespread way, and this has actually increased amount of spread of glyphosate. As I said, I had very little time to put together this presentation. There is even weirder thing that happened. In the Canadian government has actually spread glyphosate in forest to clearing forests. These all things have happened, and people. So the people who are living in this far-flung outside communities, they saw deers and wild animals having all sorts of weird deformities. So they put it together to people like Tony Mitra and all. They took it up with the Canadian representatives, MPs, who who I think have this practice had now reduced, but it was quite prevalent like a few years back. So literally a chemical that we have no idea about has been spread anywhere and everywhere. First for killing weeds, number two then for threshing and removing grains, and even for clearing this thing. The same way, with the US in the Vietnam War used to spread Agent Orange and all, and uh, clear forest for them so that they can target their enemies. Similar things have done for supposedly economical reasons. And one of the reasons why around glyphosate has been made very popular in the US is in agriculture. So genetically modified foods are basically primarily of two types. They keep talking about how GM foods are going to solve world hunger, etc., and all that. But in reality, GM foods are primarily of two types. One, glyphosate tolerant crops. So since glyphosate is essentially something that's generated by a vague soil organism, they have engineered a gene that will be glyphosate tolerant, and they put it into plants. So for the farmers, especially for a large scale control farming, contract farming that's done in the US and all you have to do, you spread glyphosate throughout the fields and then sow your glyphosate tolerant plants. So what they call Roundup ready plants. So this Roundup ready plant will grow, nothing else will grow. So very easy to grow, right? So so glyphosate. So all GM plants in the US and Canada are basically Roundup ready, which is glyphosate tolerant, plus the whatever that bollworm tolerant, that is BT toxin, that is for pesticide, so that it doesn't get attacked by pests. So this has been the so Monsanto used to hold the patent for Roundup. They also held the patent for these GM plants. So it was a win-win situation for everybody. So to tell the farmers, you plant these, there's very little labor for you, a lot of profits, and easy to manage, etc. And at the same time, buy the seeds from us, it will tolerate the weed killer. Okay. Now, very basic, why glyphosate is so dangerous. So if you look at what I've shared on screen, right, this is the chemical structure of glycine versus the chemical structure of glyphosate. Now, no, there are basically 22 amino acids that are used as building block of proteins in the life, in animals, plants, bacteria, all living things. So glyphosate mimics a very, very important amino acid, glycine. So no, so we were talking about endocrine disruptors, right? So I will talk. I'm not going to dispute what Dr. Tahira said, or trying to
explain over him or something. But as a layman, I'll tell you what I think, what I believe, what I have understood as an endocrine disruptor. It is basically something that a non-essential, a dangerous chemical that mimics the chemical that is used by the body for physiological processes. So our body actually accepts that not as a dangerous chemical, but hey, yeah, okay, I need this for this particular process, so I am going to use this. But the problem is downstream metabolic process creates complete havoc because of this chemical. In the same way, glycine is basically a basic amino acid. It is used to build many other proteins and many other complex physiological chemicals. So the body, basically, body, not just our body, any living organism that depends on glycine, right, is going to think, look at glyphosate and say, hey, oh yeah, this is glycine, and it's going to get absorbed, and it's going to try to create, pursue and create those physiological processes, that the metabolic processes that build proteins and build hormones, etc. All of that. So which is why it's extremely dangerous. It's like it hits at a very, very basic building block of life.
Yes.
Same thing in a different. So if you can see, basically the three hydrogen atoms are NH was with H2 is basically uh, tied to a chemical which phosphorus and a bigger chain. So, yeah. So again, as I said, I was talking about glycine, right? Glycine is a basic amino acid without which life on this planet, as we know, would not exist. It's involved in plants, animals, fungi, etc., and in us. It's not you, us, basically human beings. So yeah. So I said, so it disrupts something called the I think shikimate pathway. Sorry. So shikimate pathway is something that's used by plants, bacteria. There's a multi-step process for you know in plant metabolism, and it's also used by bacteria. It disrupts our intestinal beneficial. It's also hurts our digestive system, and it kills. So it basically kills plants, kills plant material by blocking the shikimate pathway. So so I'm going to talk, and I'm just going to talk about, so these are, so I talked about Tony Mitra, Shantanu Mitra. He in the time 2014 to 2016, right, he basically chased Canadian representatives and made them test very. So when he first approached the Canadian government for data about glyphosate residues in various food items, he got that, oh, it's all very trace amounts. That's the standard BS they give always. So then he figured there is no actual data. So he actually managed to chase it, and he contacted his own MP, no response, and he persisted till the Montreal MP actually contacted him, and he raised in the Canadian Parliament, okay, we need to test and give out these numbers because we are saying there is no effect of glyphosate. The food, etc., is very trace amounts, etc., etc. Right. So through that, he actually has tested and published an Amazon book. I have not read it, but I think he basically documented what he has collected. It's called Poison Foods of North America. That's the title of the book. So if you see, for example, in this is in 2016 or 2015 actually, where the parts per billion of glyphosate in sample in food categories that is imported into Canada from India. So all it does basically Canada centric. So that's the only data we have right now, right? So on his whatever was imported from India, lentil, your dals seem to have a very high quantity of glyphosate. Now, there is some data on as glyphosate usage has increased, right? No, so I'm presenting very little because I know I was also looking at this 1 hour presentation. I didn't want to keep rambling on and on. But from when glyphosate usage in North America has increased, the thyroid cancer has actually increased. There's actually these are references. There's multiple. There's this thyroid cancer. I just put up thyroid cancer, and the next slide you will see acute kidney issues. So same thing, number of hospitalizations for acute kidney issues has again increased, literally like as the thyroid, the glyphosate usage has increased in US, you can see that the kidney issues have been issues. And if you look up, there was an incident where the Sri Lanka, they banned glyphosate because a lot of their agriculture people were getting kidney failures. But there was a fight back from the industry. They said, okay, this will affect the economy, and they revoked the ban. It was there for a short time. 2 3 years back, this incident happened. It was used by the tea gardens, and, and when they first banned it, when they stopped using it, the industry said, okay, you are affecting the economy, and and then they actually managed to get the ban reversed. I think sorry, this is a repetitive thing. Yeah. So, for if you are interested in knowing about glyphosate, right? I think there are only three people in the world who are really knowledgeable about glyphosate and its dangers. One, Stephanie Seneff, she is a researcher at MIT. Then there is a site, the biggest, the foremost authority on glyphosate should be a researcher called Anthony Semsel. I think he stays in New Hampshire. He's pretty much a recluse. He's not. I mean, you will see he has published papers on that, and there is video on Tony Mitra's blog where he's interviewed. Those are probably all best references. And of course, Tony Mitra. Yeah, I think his website is tony.org. I'll just share it on screen. If you can just browse his site for all the videos, the interviews that he has done with, the Dr. Stephanie Seneff or Dr. Anthony Semsel, to the extent and to understand more about this, about glyphosate. So, and how do we, how do we come out of this? The only way, in my opinion, is to spread awareness and make our choices. You have to you need to make sure that your food is from all known sources, and organic sources. Food grown without any chemicals. I know organic food is expensive, etc. But then, if you cannot afford that food, then you're going to pay for it some other way. Even if you are, then you have to team up and figure out ways to force. The only way the industry people will stop using these chemicals, they realize that it's not going to help them. So right now, if you go to University of Agriculture, just at Harvard, there's just glyphosate cans just strewn all over the place and all in agricultural fields. It is that, and somebody who gets who has a degree of Bachelor of Agricultural Sciences, what is the first job they get? As a salesman for agricultural products, and one of those agricultural products is glyphosate. I'm not making this up. I've actually talked to people, and I was like, I'm stunned that this is actually what happens, right? So our agricultural universities, they are funded by these people who promote these products. I mean, you will have somebody who's doing a PhD, and the PhD will be able, and if I use 30% glyphosate with that 50% chemical, which will increase yield, you can create some sort of research, and you'll get actually a degree based on that. Somebody who comes out of a university with that knowledge is only going to propagate that because that's what he has learned, or he or she has learned. So, so that's the only way. Only we as consumers, we make choices, then only this menace is going to end. Because the people who make these products, they are selling more and more. I've heard somebody from Punjab saying that okay, they just spray it outside to remove weeds. I know I have relatives in the US. I was shocked how, and I tried to tell them how dangerous it is, but they were just laughing at me. Everybody uses this. I mean, but everybody is sick. Everybody is not well. Why can't you make that correlation? It's just bizarre. So
Yes.
yeah, so yeah, I can share this also later on. So this is the poison foods of North America. This is the only documented evidence of glyphosate poisoning that we have, literally, because they have actually analyzed various foods, ready-made foods, actual raw material from the market in the Canada, and seen how much of glyphosate poisoning is there in this thing. Okay. And this was in 2015. From then till now, it has probably gone. This glyphosate, usage has gone out wrong back. So for a long time, Monsanto used to say that it is harmless, or not, it was this thing, till one guy whose job was to spray weed killer in schools in California. He got lymphoma, terminal lymphoma. So he managed to sue Monsanto, and Monsanto has been bought by Bayer right now. That it was because of this weed killer that he got cancer. And so in US tort system, right? So unlike vaccines, this particular compound does not have any blanket protection. So the company had to release internal memos, internal emails, which showed that they knew that this was extremely toxic. And based on that, he got awarded a lot of money. I think $210 million. This was 2 years back. So his name was Dwayne Johnson. I mean, I expect a lot of people to know this, but I don't know. There's a very there is a systematic way in which, even though it's these sort of news items are easily available, it's hidden from plain view. Hardly people get to know about it. Yeah, this is so. These are lesions on his body that he showed in court as was eventually led to the diagnosis of lymphoma, and that was traced to the use of this chemical. I think so. One thing I would, like to tell right now, because in India, what people don't understand is a lot of the dals, especially Bengal gram, and is not actually grown in India. It's imported from places like Africa, Bangladesh, Australia, Canada, especially countries like Australia, they grow it just for the Indian market, because for them they can use chemicals and grow it at a large scale. There are companies, farms that grow it just to export to India. That make a market. And now with all this, we are talking about this agricultural law change and all that, right? So these companies like Adani and all building huge godowns to store these. So they will just import it. It will be cheaper and then sell it in the market. And since there's very little regulations there, it will be much more toxic, because here in a farmer has to spray to his fields, and the effect will be there on the farm workers. All right. If you can start somewhere, I would say dal, all whatever Bengal gram, tur dal, and all. Make sure you buy from known sources where it is grown. That it's a good start, because in dal seems to have a lot more glyphosate residues in it. So, I think that's it. So I'll just share one. Just 1 minute. Do you see my screen? So I would say, if you want to know more about glyphosate, right, the best resource is tonu.org. You can see him, he has interviewed Dr. Anthony Samsel, and there are links to research. And there's just so much information. You can spend a lot of time just reading and understanding, and it will just shock you the amount of stuff that is there. So I think I'm done with my presentation. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you. So, it was very nice. So, our purpose to conduct this was to make the people aware that there are poisons around us, in and around us, and the worst thing is that we are actually buying them for our own kids.
We are buying them. And see, thing is, we think that okay, we are healthy, but we are not paying attention to how every generation is progressively getting unhealthier. And either we are not acknowledging it, or if you talk to people, oh no, because of medical science, people are getting better. You are looking at survivorship bias. They keep saying like that, as if what is obvious to me is not obvious to them. And it is somehow, when you talk about it, it's like you hit a wall. They just don't see what's happening right in front of their eyes.
So, any questions?
Yes, there's one question from Shivamrita. What processing of pepper makes it an endocrine disruptor? I think you spoke about that, Dr. Tahir.
What?
Processing of pepper. How does processing of pepper makes it an endocrine disruptor?
Paper. Not pepper.
Not pepper.
Yeah, pepper, bleaching paper. Okay. For a moment, I was like black pepper.
That's right.
So it is a paper, because they bleach it so that the paper is made glossy. Especially if you see, which was this book? which is made by ITC. You see the notebooks made by ITC, you'll see that paper is glossy. So you can be sure that that paper has phthalates, which is coated with phthalates.
Right. And how is glyphosate regulated in India? Ananya is asking.
Oh,
Do
it's
you
not
have-
regulated. It is no way it is regulated. You can, you just go to a agricultural small town, go to Coorg or any. I mean, I'm talking about the places that I've been to. It's just available everywhere.